And good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're at in the world. Might even be good morning. This is Tony Teegarden coming to you from Laguna Beach. You can see here, I thought this was going to be pretty neat. You get to see the many moods of Laguna Beach today, this evening actually. It's going on 4 o'clock here right now, Pacific. And as you can see, we've got kind of an interesting kind of tone going on here. It's kind of moody. Hey, welcome. Already got some really cool people. Got Miss Paula Robinson. Welcome, lady. And Shirley Jones. Glad that you're both here, ladies. Thank you. Always good to see you both stop by. And yeah, I'm going to give it a couple of moments here just for some other cool people to join us on this Facebook Live. Really had a lot of fun doing yesterday's Lagooniversary. That was just a really fun time for me. Was it yesterday or the day before? I'll tell you, time is flying by. I can just tell you that much since I've moved out here to Laguna. And again, I'm going to give you a little bit of a shot here of what we got. It's really whimsical almost looking. Enchanting, I would almost say. We've got the kind of the fog rolling in over here. Again, just really amazing. No worries, Shirley. Jump on back later and catch the replay. Might not take too terribly long to do this one today, but I certainly had I felt called to share this particular idea. And if you noticed, what I believe I'll be doing from now on, as I intend. Thank you. Yes, I'm glad you love it. Thanks, Shirley. I believe what I'll end up doing here is, as I'm going to do Facebook Lives that day, I will probably post something in the mornings, like I've been doing, at least Pacific time mornings. And Carol Ann, welcome. Glad to see you here, my friend. Kevin James, got all kinds of cool people joining us here. So ultimately what I believe I'll be doing is I'll be posting in the mornings and kind of alluding to some of the content that I'll be sharing later on in the day. Sometimes I like to do these off the cuff, but I found to make sure that people know when to show up or participate, maybe even want to schedule it in, these Facebook Lives. I felt that it might be helpful. And Victoria Teegarden Thomas, my mama, hello, welcome, love you. Glad you're here. I'm going to call you again. I think we've missed each other, so I will probably call you either tonight or tomorrow, and we will connect once again. Joanne Lanaville. Hello, welcome. So I want to dive in here today and really share this message, just really from the heart. I always love to do these because sometimes I have no idea what I'm going to say, but I know whatever I say is going to come out in a way that's meant to be heard. And so, I really want to share, this idea. I'm going to share a story with you first, so you kind of have some context here, and I'm going to go into it not terribly deep, but I think it's important for you to realize just how powerful this is for you to be able to apply within your own life and almost literally give you total control of how the world happens outside of you, in a sense, right? So about a year ago, going on, or not quite a year ago, but last year, I went on a bit of an adventure. And on that adventure, had a great time, but I also felt like I was about to die. And literally, I'm not talking figuratively, like literally I thought I was going to die on this little adventure. And what I realized was, in that process, there's a lot of things I could have blamed. There's people I could have blamed. There are circumstances that I could have blamed. A lot of things that are happening, on the outside of me, so to speak, I could have really blamed. But what I realized was that I had architected that experience. And so when you hear me speaking into this idea of taking full responsibility, and being response-able, meaning you're able to respond to circumstances and situations and people rather than react, it's a very powerful concept. And that's not necessarily what I want to share with you today, but I keep going into this idea, this concept, because I just really want to drive it home, just how powerful even just that bit of paradigm really can be. But on this adventure, I in real time practice this process. And what I discovered when this other individual who was involved in this circumstance not only didn't realize that I felt betrayed in a way, that I felt abandoned is probably even a better word. And most people in my circumstances would have said, damn straight you were, right? They would have told me, you're absolutely right to be pissed off and cuss them out and be angry and be upset. You know, you have every right to be. And that's one way to look at it. But this one question that I want to share literally shifted and constantly shifts and shapes the way that I perceive myself, my responsibility, my emotional responsibility, the people in the world that are in my world, that I've invited into my world. And I ask this question in real time because it allows me to step into this emotionally intelligent container where I can actually respond on demand in many ways rather than reacting. So this question it's got a lot of benefits, and there's a lot of challenges if in the event that you don't ask this question. You know, I just talked about some of the benefits of being able to respond to circumstances rather than react to circumstances. If you don't, then many times, if you aren't practicing or asking this question, you'll find that you will be at the effect of the world, and you'll find yourself as a victim rather than a victor. And you'll many times also start to ask, why are these things happening to me? Why do they always seem to happen to me? You know, there's a lot of you know, ways that this can go about, and you'll find yourself lashing out at people. And, you know, even, or if you don't lash out at them, you'll find yourself being resentful of people. And I found this to be very true both in intimate relationships and, you know, within family relationships, within businesses and organizations. You'll even feel this way around clients. And so what I've discovered is that when I take that responsibility and realize that I'm the architect of my attitude and of the paradigm around this circumstance, it allows me to, you know, immediately I can ask this question and it sets the tone. So what is the question? The question is always asking, am I coming from a place of love or fear? I know this may sound very basic, but it's also a great question to ask whenever you are in conversation with people, or if someone is angry or upset or jealous or condescending. You know, name your poison as far as, you know, qualities that the person might be demonstrating. You should always ask yourself, is this person coming from love or are they coming from fear? And what happens is when you ask this question, instantaneously you will realize that all of those qualities that seemingly that they're mirroring back to you, if you are triggered by them, then chances are they're just mirroring back to you qualities that you yourself have yet to integrate. And that's a hard pill to swallow for some people, and it's a relief for others. Because when you ask this question, if you're triggered by it, then guess what? You're probably not coming from a place of love yourself. You're probably coming from a place of fear. And there's nothing, you know, necessarily that's wrong with that. It's certainly one way to handle the circumstances. But generally what I find is it exacerbates the circumstances. It begins to pit you and the other person at each other's throat in the problem. And so you know, one person is always on the other side looking for the other to, you know, surrender in a way, right? So when I ask this question, you know, am I coming from a place of love or fear? Well, that's where I happen to come from. You know, and in that circumstance, I asked myself the question. The person actually wanted to argue with me, which was really hilarious. And, you know, if you were on the outside looking in, you would have clearly said, you know, I had a right to be angry or to be upset or feel abandoned or betrayed. But when I asked that question, am I coming from a place of love or fear? And I realized that, you know, if I would have lanced out at this individual, I would have been coming from a place of fear. And so what was I afraid of? And literally it had me dive into the responsibility, right? The ability to respond into asking myself, how did I architect this? In which I did. You know, I chose to pick an individual. I chose the circumstances. I architected the circumstances. of which that experience happened. I invited that person into, into my path, and I, literally created the circumstances. And so what allowed me to do was not put this person on a pedestal and be passive, and certainly not put them into a pit and be pensive. It allowed me to put them in my heart. And I realized that this person was mirroring back to me my own sense of abandonment, and where I abandoned my intuition because I had a feeling, right, that I had a pretty good idea that this could be possible. Matter of fact, it had already been told to me that it had already happened before, right? So asking this question, am I coming from a place of love or fear? Is this other individual coming from a place of love or fear? It allows you to be much more compassionate and controlled in your response, and just literally can change the playing field, both in your business, in your relationships, and even within your own conversation with yourself and your health. I was talking with a gentleman when I was in the gym earlier, and we were talking about, I can't wait to kind of lose some of my holiday hump, we'll call it that, right? I've been working out intensively, and he's like, you've got to think yourself lean, got to see yourself lean. And if not, if you constantly are, telling yourself that, well, I just can't seem to get rid of the belly fat, I've never been able to get rid of it. Well, again, are you coming from a place of love or fear when you have that conversation with yourself? Because chances are you would never say that to, someone that you really loved and cared for. You wouldn't tell them, you know what, Tony, you just can't get rid of your belly fat. You've never been able to do it. You're probably never going to be able to do it. You just wouldn't talk like that to somebody. Or at least it wouldn't be very, very nice, right, in that sense. But also ultimately being able to see yourself as lean, and then how can you support yourself in the highest, in making sure that occurs, and supporting yourself in the habits and the rituals, and seeing that it can happen, and coming from a place of love, and coming from a place of being responsible for your body, being responsible for your business, or being responsible for your bank account, and being responsible for your beliefs, right? There's a lot of crossover in this concept, in this idea of asking this question. And what happens is when you begin to get really good at asking this question, what it does is it allows you to transform any of the traumas. It allows you to literally step into a new paradigm of how you see yourself, and how you see the world, and how you act upon the world. And you begin to see the world much more for you than against you. Because generally what I've discovered is there are a lot of people out there that are in pain. They're coming from places of fear. And I understand that probably more than ever, because I have gone through that process. I have definitely, turned, the dark of, some of my past experiences in that dark and that dissonance, and be able to transform that trauma, more into something that is in my greatest benefit, and has me showing up in my greatest good, and serving the people that I'm working with. So when you can ask this, it turns your strengths, it turns your struggles into strengths when you can ask this question. If you find yourself struggling with relationships, if you find yourself struggling with communication, maybe between a spouse, or maybe between a family member, or between even just the opposite sex, if you're wanting to date, right? It's like something, as I'm single, it's like, I'm navigating, this ground of communication, and seeing, like, am I able to find if this person's coming from a place of love or fear? And, it just really makes things more simple when you think about this, and when you begin to actually apply it. For me, it's actually simplified my life quite a bit. It allows me to take a lot of the emotion out of the meanings that I assign things. I don't, turn myself into a victim. I don't ask myself why a lot of times, why somebody's showing up this way. I just ask them, are they coming from a place of love or fear? Am I coming from a place of love or fear? And, it may seem like it's a very oversimplified way of approaching relationships or communication, but I can tell you that it certainly does allow you to take the emotional charge out of of experiences and relationships, especially if you're having negotiations of any kind, right? Especially even in business. And so I hope that this has been slightly helpful. Again, I'm kind of articulating my thoughts in real time here, externally processing in some ways, but these are definitely ideas and concepts that I have experienced and literally demonstrated in my life over the last several years to allow myself to have a greater depth of love for myself. And I'll be sharing stories here soon of, where that has definitely been something very challenging in the past for me, and something that these days is something that I believe transcends a lot of trauma in life, is when you can deeply fall in love with yourself, when you can deeply, respect yourself, when you can deeply learn to lean into your shadows and realize that they're not something to disown, that they're actually a strength of yours that you can take from being a struggle and actually turn them into a strength. And this one question has been something that in a very simple way has allowed me to do this, to be able to pause, be present, and begin to more produce in the world, and produce healthy relationships, and produce more meaningful work in my life, and produce, at this point, a healthier body that I can, show up energetically with in the world. But ultimately, it's that relationship with self. It's the relationship and how you and I see ourselves. And this is one question: am I coming from a place of love or fear? And it's not even that you have to dig into it and start to try and figure it out and go back to your childhood. I mean, certainly that stuff can be helpful. Lord knows I've done a lot of that. But what I do believe is really, really helpful is to be able to just catch yourself in those moments when you're falling into story, because those stories can certainly be systematic of creating more trauma and drama, right, in the same time. So are you coming from a place of love or fear? Because really at the root level of everything that goes on in our lives, those are the two root emotions. If someone is jealous, if they're angry, if they're hateful, or any of those, it always comes back down to the root emotion of fear. And so if we know this, we can be more compassionate. We can say, okay, what is this person afraid of? That's what I had to ask myself when I went through this experience last year. When this person actually wanted to argue with me, when in fact, the circumstances did show where it was probably not a really cool thing to do. It was actually very dangerous, to way of behaving and showing up, which, I actually at one point was afraid that I would have a heat stroke and die, literally. I could have easily been angry. I could have easily, pointed the finger, but I would have been carrying all of that around for such a long time. Now, I don't have to choose to be engaged in a relationship with that individual, or, a friendship, or whatever you want to call it. I can choose to allow them to have their own experience, but it was my experience. And my experience is I choose to come from love. I choose to choose myself, in this sense, to respect and honor my boundaries, and also to respect that I did make the choice. I did create and architect this experience, and so now I'm going to architect my attitude, right? I'm going to elevate my attitude, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. And if, when you have two people that are on the same team, that are, I always say, in friendships or intimate relationships and marriages or businesses, when you have two people at the same altitude going in the same direction and at the same speed, man, there's not a lot that you two can't do together. There's not a lot that you can't, there's not many landscapes that you can't make it over when you both are in that. You're on the same team, as my relationship coach, Jeannie Sago, would say. Being on the same team makes things, any kind of landscape that you might be challenged with in life, so much more easy to traverse. Especially when you have close friends, when you have close family members, and you can really tighten and bond those relationships and those connections, by just literally asking yourself, when you hit those roads, when you hit those challenging moments, am I coming from a place of love or fear? Are they coming from a place of love or fear? And if they're coming from fear, then you can allow yourself to lean more into being compassionate and loving and understanding, and asking yourself, what are they afraid of right now? And so it's something that I found has worked way, way better than butting heads and wanting to smash into another person and make them wrong. It's just, on any level, no matter how subtle, that might be, or how absolutely explicit that might come across, I found that it's not really super helpful for creating intimate relationships. And if the other person's not willing to lean into that with you and realize that you're softening your heart and realize that you are inviting them in through your own transparency and through your own vulnerability. If they aren't able to honor that, and maybe they aren't at that same altitude of you and going in the same direction at the same speed, well then, maybe it is time for that relationship to conclude. But I think when you're in an intimate relationship, one where there's marriage involved, I think this is such a powerful tool that, because you've both already agreed that you're here to commit, and that you're not going to run, from the challenging moments. I feel like this is a tool that it would be absolutely stunning to see the results and how it will show up in both, in your intimate relationship in life and also the other areas in your life where you can tend to lean into this. So I hope that's helpful. I hope it was a little more meaningful. Sometimes, what I do is I use these Facebook Lives just to kind of share what's on my heart, and, allow it to just kind of channel through me. And there's a lot of stuff that I do contemplate on and I write about and I journal. Sometimes I'm sharing with you stuff that's straight out of my journal as well. My brother Hal, my brother from another mother right there, man. It's good to see you, brother. Coming out to Houston soon. Next month, maybe? We'll talk about that. So hopefully this has been helpful and been supportive to you. If there's any questions that you might have, feel free to either pop them below or send me a message. I love doing these Facebook Lives for you. They're a lot of fun. It allows me to really kind of step even outside of my own business aspect of what I really do for work, so to speak. It is meaningful work. I love helping, coaches and experts and getting their messages out into the world. Charging appropriately for those messages and doing that meaningful work. And so, but this is also something I end up working with a lot of coaches too, is in this very, unspoken aspect of the world of communication and engagement. And I found like the deeper of the love and compassion that you and I have for ourselves, the way more easy that we're able to do that with other people. So Paula, you're so welcome. I appreciate you so much. You're like one of my other like huge fans that you always comment and like and love my stuff and hear it on Instagram, and I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the connection. My man Oliver, my main man Oliver right there, that's my man with some love. We are love brothers, man, right? In a good way. So it's good. Holly, yes, self-love, so important. Self-love is really, when you get down to it, it's like everything, right? Such a great point. I think it's really what I was speaking into is, just having that self-love, just having that ability to just accept yourself no matter what. God knows boy, did I have some challenges with that over the years, just shaming myself, rejecting myself on so many levels, confusing my roles, with my identity, as such a pure, loving light. Man, it was, thank gosh I'm through a lot of that. Certainly here to be able to support everybody. You're so welcome, Paula. Absolutely. You're so welcome. So with that, I believe what we'll do is we're going to shut her down. And thank you, Holly. Thank you for the love. I like to see them hearts. Absolutely. And Oliver, thank you for the hearts as well, my friend. So with that, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I'll give you one last look here at this majestic fog that is coming in here in Laguna Beach. I love the many moods of Laguna Beach. You can count on there are going to be many here, and I love it. So Donald Wilson, so cool to see you stop by, man. Good to see you there. So with that, folks, I hope you enjoyed today, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next Facebook Live. If you have anything you'd love to hear about, I would love majestic fog codes. Yes, exactly, brother. If you have any questions or stuff that you'd love to hear about, stuff you'd love to see me speak into, I've got tons of stuff that I love to share, especially on this topic. But if there's anything you'd specifically love to hear me speak into, shoot me a message. I'd love to hear what it is that you'd love me to speak into and maybe even support you with. And of course, I'll keep it all on the down low. Nobody will know that you asked, right? So with that, I hope you have an amazing weekend. I'll probably stop in and stop in with you and hang out for the weekend at some point. We're going to have some rain here, so if I do, it'll probably be inside. But otherwise, I appreciate you. Much love, and thank you for being here today. Appreciate you all. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.